I would like to give thanks to the ancestors, known and unknown, those who have paved the way for us to survive this moment of time and to have a reference point to use as a blueprint to deal with these hellish times we are living in. I would also like to give honor and reverence to the woman of the universe for your superior work, for bringing forth the spiritual information through the triple stage of darkness of your womb and giving birth to God. We would like to give reverence to the universe and praises to the indigenous. My name is Raheem Shabazz, and this is Necessary Blackness Podcast.
Necessary Blackness Podcast is independently owned, and we do not accept sponsorship dollars from corporations. We are supported by the people such as yourself who know that in war, the first casualty is the truth. We are at war with racism and white supremacy. We must continue to tell the truth. Support us by purchasing your Necessary Blackness t-shirt by sending an email to necessaryblacknesspodcast@gmail.com.
Check out MCJ, musicculturejournalism.com. Hip-hop is a global movement, reaching all aspects of music, culture, and journalism. MCJ is the premier destination for culture-driven video and editorial content around the country. Check out musicculturejournalism.com. Log on today.
Wingy Apparel is the latest fly and revolutionary streetwear to hit the market. Wingy is the outfitters of freedom fighters everywhere. Wingy is a Swahili word that means abundance. No one has ever gone broke by giving. So if you have it in abundance, sharing is better than receiving. Follow us on Instagram at Wingy Apparel. That's at WINGIAPPAREL.
Necessary Blackness Podcast, every Wednesday at 6 p.m. with award-winning journalist and filmmaker Raheem Shabazz. This podcast is only for those who are unapologetic, because the mind of the conscious man or woman recognizes no monopoly on truth. Truth is relative and always to be sought.
The Body Right Tonic is an all-natural detoxer infused with 15 alkaline herbs, 7 of which are tonic herbs. The Body Right Tonic is good for anyone suffering from high blood pressure, diabetes, low immunity, or abnormal menstrual cycles. Get you some tonic, man. Visit us at prettywitchy.com, or you can check us out at Pretty Witchy or Body Right Tonic on IG. Be well. Peace.
Peace and power, Black family. This is your host, Raheem Shabazz, and we are here for another episode of Necessary Blackness Podcast. Now, this is the time that we're going to take a few minutes to highlight Black excellence. This is another brother that is doing extraordinary things. He has a podcast called Get Your Hand Out My Pocket. And Get Your Hand Out My Pocket podcast conveys the unfiltered truth about Africans in the diaspora through social media and independent audio medium to converse about the daily go-ons in Black society, Black world, and Black culture. Also, the brand will look to connect and unify with other grassroots organizations to continue the fight against social injustice, ultimately to give people what they want, to give them what they need. Minister X decided to join the freedom struggle in 2015. He rose to chairman of the local organizing committee, Justice or Else, in Albany, New York, and he dedicated his life to African people in the diaspora to create a bloodline of liberators and revolutionaries. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's give Minister X a warm welcome round of applause. All right, peace and Black Power family. This is your host, Raheem Shabazz, and we are here for another episode of Necessary Blackness Podcast. And today, as I stated, we have a special guest, Minister X.
How are you doing, my brother?
I'm doing great, brother. It's a beautiful day out. It's another day to be black.
That's right. Like Marcus Garvey said, think black, be black, and everything else will work itself out.
That's right.
So today, brother, I want to talk and let the people know about your podcast. Get your hand out my pocket. When you came up with the podcast, let people know, because many probably don't know, where that term, get your hand out my pocket, comes from, and what was the whole premise of starting the podcast, and thus far, how has it been receptive amongst our people?
Well, one, I want to thank you for allowing me to come on and explain the basics, get your hand on my pocket. Basically, the term comes from Minister Malcolm X, Haj Malik al-Shabazz assassination. The assassinators had several teams available that particular day. The one team that made it in without being checked sat, I want to say, 15 to 20 minutes before the actual meeting started. And they devised a plan to have a distraction in the back of the room. And once everybody moved towards the distraction, the assassinators would go in and exterminate Minister Malcolm. And the plan worked out just fine. And the distraction that was used, the term that they used, the words that they used was, "Nigga, get your hand out my pocket." Everybody turned and looked at them. Then, everybody knows the history. So I took that term and utilized it for the podcast, because most people, when they see me or they hear the title of the podcast, they actually start to laugh. And it's strange. I said, we got a funny sense of humor, because one of our greatest leaders of all time, arguably, was murdered directly after someone saying that. But it connects them with Minister Malcolm, and they kind of know, based on that premise, what the podcast is for. When I became conscious, I want to say in 2015, it was just, I think, a little after 2014, the Mike Brown assassination, the Ferguson riots thereafter, kind of pulled me into moving. Then the Million Man March of 2015, so it kind of all molded in together. And I was a sports head, like most black men. And once I saw that, and I seen where the direction of the country was going, I started to get connected to the history. I had seen Malcolm X, the movie, several times, but it didn't have an effect on me to get involved in the movement. But once Mike Brown happened, once the Million Man March happened, I became conscious. I've seen a lot of Dr. Umar Johnson. A lot of brothers won't admit that, but I reference all the people I get information from. I've seen a lot of those 2 or 3 minute bits of Dr. Johnson, and I just got consumed with his message. And, I got conscious, and I wanted to start moving right away. And so I felt, all right, what do I do with this consciousness? How do I act? How do I get involved in the movement? So I came up with the idea of starting a podcast.
How receptive have it been to our people?
Well, I think we had a discussion before priorhand about the local impact, because I have it on Grand Street, a local community radio, and it's on Grand Street, and I utilize it there. So it's an actual show that plays live on radio. So myself, my other co-hosts, I will have multiple different co-hosts. I use it as an opportunity for us to combine our efforts. Other people who consider themselves conscious, other people who have been in the movement. I've had a situation where on the podcast I've had 150 years of activism combined, on the show. So I go out to brothers who are, in their 40s, 50s. You wouldn't consider them elders just yet, but those who are in their 70s and been in the movement since the King assassination on the show. And it's been well received. Like I said, when I go around, people will shout out, instead of my name, they'll shout out, "Get your hand in my pocket," So the message is reaching our local audience, which is good. I want it to continue to increase. And, like we spoke, consistency is the key. But they love the information, because I'm the what you would call the most radical voice in the city. And so to have that extreme, you got to have all the extremes. We got integrationalism. We got LGBTism, allyship, liberalism. We got all that, but we don't have the so-called radical movement that has been destroyed by and large. And so I represent that.
Now you talked about having your podcast
locally viewed. Most people don't know that you are the chairman of the local organizing committee, Justice for Else, in Albany, New York. Tell me a little bit about that and how did that come apart?
Well, the LOC, as it's called, stems from the original 1995 Million Man March, where the minister told the 2 million black men that were there that day to go to your communities and make it a better, safer place to live, to establish all the things that our people need, to demand the things that you need, and at the same time be able to create something for yourself. And Brother Noor Muhammad did an excellent job in one of his interviews to talk about certain specific things that the brothers in the mosque were doing and other brothers in the community were doing, like adoptions, black adoptions that increased, crime had went down, things of that nature that isn't talked about when the Million Man March is brought up. Once again, in 2015, he was able to bring brothers back to nation's capital, and with that fire, come back and develop an LOC. And you know how our people are. When thing is new and popping, as they say, it'll last. That fire lasts for 5 to 6, 7 months. So when the order came out in 2015, we had about 20, 25 people within the organization. And if you are an organizer on any level, you really could take over a city with 20, 25 committed people. Give yourself a couple years. If you really organize it, you can take the city over, especially if you got a large contingent of black people. And we have about 50,000 in our city. That's enough to take over a city. But ultimately, again, you have different mindsets within the organization. And a lot of times those things aren't able to occur. But I decided to join in 2015. Made my bones, as they say. I wanted to immediately contribute, get to know the members of the organization, and eventually ascended to chairman. So that's one thing I like to lead with, so that people know I'm just not someone who speaks on the mic, but I'm actually active in my community.
That's what's up, brother. And also, speaking of activism, you have an event that's coming up. I know you guys are still in the planning stage of it, but you're going to be doing a Kwanzaa event. Are you at liberty to talk about some of the things that's going to be happening surrounding that monumental event?
Yes, absolutely. We're celebrating Kwanzaa as presented to us by Maulana Karenga. I believe created in 1966. We have it every year. We celebrate the 7 principles and 7 days thereafter Christmas. I like to think that is the black person's alternative to Christmas. And you don't get very far if you tell black people what they shouldn't be doing. So our message is, you can celebrate Kwanzaa and Christmas at the same time. The reality is we need to focus on Kwanzaa because it has the principles of independence, of nation building, acquiring your own name, acquiring your history, basically the answer to all our problems. Christmas is not the answer to all our problems. Christmas is the detriment, is the epitome of the reason why we are the way we are and where we are currently in America. Justice for Else are part of the first day, the opening day, Umoja, Unity, December 26th. And we're holding something that we hold every year. I'm part of the Justice for Else and myself, we're part of the Kwanzaa Coalition here in the Capital District. And in the Empire Building, one of our biggest, in the museum, our biggest platform, a building here in Albany, we have that first day. I'm emceeing. We have vendors. We have entertainment. We have libations. We're recognizing the children. We're rolling out programs moving forward in 2020 for Justice for Else. So it's going to be a really big event. We have to realize that the solution is in our hands. And the Byron Allen recent Byron Allen interview have shown us some of the things that we're up against in regards to economic wealth. That these folks have billions of dollars allocated to themselves, and none of the money comes down to us. So our jobs, the pennies and nickels that we got, as Minister Malcolm said, you put your nickels and pennies and dimes together yourself and create something for yourself, and everybody's invested in it. And when everybody's invested in something, it's very difficult to take it away. You understand? The brothers and sisters in Tulsa had some guns, but they didn't have enough guns. As a matter of fact, they ran out the real revolutionaries of the community because they felt they were safe, because they thought that they had their thing and they was going to be left alone. And they realized white supremacy, as Dr. Francis Wilson said, Dr. Navy Fuller says, if you don't understand white supremacy, everything else will confuse you. So we give those messages in Kwanzaa. We like to make sure that there's a militant element to it, even though it was created to combat the militant element. We're infusing it back in. So that's what we're doing this year.
That's right. For those that are just joining us, I'm speaking with the brother Minister X, who is from the podcast, Get Your Hand Out of My Pocket. And it deals with Malcolm X and some of the principles and teachings that Malcolm X stood on. Now, we're dealing with Malcolm X, brother. Malcolm X said, to run from black people that white racists love, and run to black people that white racists hate. So we gotta run to our brother that's doing the work and that's doing it in the spirit of Malcolm X. So I want everybody to go out and support that podcast. Now we only have a few minutes left, brother. I want you to leave us something within your last closing words. But before that, I want you to let everybody know where they can find you on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or any of your social media platforms, and leave us with some final words, brother.
Sure thing. You can find me on Instagram at Get Your Hand in My Pocket, all one word. You can find us on Facebook, Get Your Hand in My Pocket, and my personal Facebook page is The Quinn Mr. X, 2 words. And you also can find us on YouTube, Get Your Hand on My Pocket, the green logo, and also SoundCloud.com/GYHOMP. So we're on several mediums. I deal with several different things through the several different mediums, but people listen to all of them. I had a sister close to me who was kind of on the fringe of consciousness and unconsciousness, and binged to listen to Get Your Hand in My Pocket, and she was on fire. And so that is the reason and proponent for a podcast to have real black media. And we want to join that on a mass level, because we feel at this point in time that our people are waking up abundantly, and we want to involve ourselves in the freedom struggle in the voice of media, but at the same time be on the ground. That was the premise of Get Your Hand in My Pocket, not only to be behind the mic talking the ish, but being on the ground and stomping with the people. And we've been a part of several skirmishes with the police. We've been a part of several peace walks with our people, as we know how we feel about peace walks. But you have to be involved in it, because ultimately you have to tell them, hey, this isn't working. But if you're not there with them and you tell them it ain't working, they're not going to listen to you. But if you're there and your feet bleeding like this and you're crying, or if you're not crying, you're the shoulder that they're leaning on, when it comes time to say, hey, man, this ain't working, what do we do? This is where Get Your Hand in My Pocket, and people who are a part of the freedom struggle in its real purpose to get our people freedom, justice, and equality. The Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad told us about the fall of America, and the fact that if we want real freedom, yeah, you can get your states, southern part of the United States, western part of the United States, northern and eastern, but white folks won't allow that to just happen. You're going to have to fight and defend what you get. This is why Minister Malcolm talked about self-defense. You don't have to have an aggressive attack towards white folks. They'll come to you if you get what is owed to you. And, ultimately, this is what we stand on. And we try to get specific with systematic white supremacy. We like to get specific with certain laws that they have put in place to continue to amass the wealth that they have and protect it through law. So land that is already established in the United States that they got 200 or 300 years ago have already been covered by the United States Constitution, and black folks won't be able to get to it. So I leave with that message, and those are things that we're going to deal with, and we're going to deal with it forcefully and earnestly. Get your hand in my pocket.
That's right. I love that you say we're going to deal with it forcefully and honestly, because that's what we need to do as a group of people. And I'm going to leave you with the words of Malcolm X when he said that we suffer from political oppression, economic exploitation, and social degradation. He said that many years ago, and it's 2019, and nothing has changed. But as the brother said, we got boots on the ground, we got warriors, we got soldiers, we got people that are standing on the front line. And all it takes is for one brother, one sister to join forces. We don't need everybody. We just need a few of our diehard warriors to fight for this liberation of freedom, justice, and equality so that we can all deserve it. All right, brother, it was a pleasure speaking to you. My name is Raheem Shabazz, and for those that are just joining us, we are interviewing Minister X. Peace and Black Power, family.
Get your hand out of my pocket!
Yo, what's going on, everybody? This your man, Mr. X. Get your hand out of my pocket. Letting you know to catch our brand new podcast on SoundCloud.com/GYHOMP. Go to YouTube page right now. Subscribe right now. Listen right now. We on Twitter and we on Facebook and we on Instagram. We got the information. We're combining consciousness with activism. Don't be on the couch yakking that yak. Get out, do some real work. So check us out at Get Your Hand on My Pocket YouTube. I hope to see you there because it's brand new, it's fast acting, and we on the ground. Trust. Yo, I only got one thing to say to you.
Get your hand out of my pocket!
There's a war going on, and don't get scared now. Peace.
Elementary Genocide provides a critical expose of mass incarceration, the war on drugs, and the connection between slavery, capitalism, and the prison-industrial complex. Visit our website at www.elementarygenocide.com. Now available, Elementary Genocide, the School to Prison Pipeline. Elementary Genocide 2, the Board of Education versus the Board of Incarceration. And the newest release, Elementary Genocide 3, Academic Holocaust. Log on today to purchase your very own 3-set docuseries.
Tune in for the drop.
I am Dr. Kira Taylor, and when I'm tired of listening to fake news, I will listen to some real news, and I will check into the Necessary Blackness podcast with my friend Raheem Shabazz.
Raheem Shabazz is one of my guys from way back, and you're now listening to his show, Necessary Blackness Podcast. Stay tuned.
This is Akua of Cultivated Roots Media, and I choose to tune in to Necessary Blackness because staying connected to my blackness is very necessary.
This is Shirley. When I'm not in the gym, I'm checking my son out on his podcast. Make sure you check out Raheem Shabazz.
Yeah, this is Professor Ed Garnes. When I am not spreading liberation theology throughout my classrooms as an African-centered therapist, I am chilling with my homie, Raheem Shabazz, on the Necessary Blackness Podcast. It's essential.
Yo, that's what I'm talking about, man.
You'll hear it here first. Now our feature presentation.
Peace and Black Power, family. This is your host, Raheem Shabazz, and we are back from our quick commercial break. And before I leave, I wanted to talk with the family about a very important issue that is coming up, and it's coming up November 4th, and it will be decided by the Supreme Court. And this is the case of Byron Allen versus Comcast. On November 14th, the Supreme Court will decide the case. And for those that haven't been following the news on this historical case, Byron Allen is using the Civil Rights Act of 1866. The Civil Rights Act is more than 150 years old, and this Civil Rights Act protects black people from discriminatory business practices. Now, the Supreme Court justice will have to decide whether or not a company's decision to not award a contract, a job to a black person could be 99% based on the reason of race and only 1% based on lack of sufficient experience in the industry. And we know that is not the case with brother Byron Allen. We also know that 80 lesser-known white-owned channels was awarded contracts from Comcast. We also know that Comcast executives was overheard saying We don't need another Bob Johnson. For those that are not familiar who Bob Johnson is, he is the former owner of BET and a self-made millionaire, a black man. So they don't want another black billionaire to come into the entertainment industry and be able to employ black people, to have programmers that reflect our values, our interests, and our principles. So this is a very historical case. Byron Allen has proven himself time and time again that he is an entrepreneur, a self-made billionaire that knows how to run a broadcast industry. He has brought 11 television stations valued at $290 million. That brings his total investment into the broadcast industry to $455 million. This man is more than capable of having contracts and having more television shows as well as channels on the Comcast network. Byron Allen has been able to show that there is a history of bias and racism when it comes to minorities that they use in their amicus brief being discriminated from purchasing channels on Comcast. And this Supreme Court case is very peculiar because Byron Allen bears the burden of having to show that race was the motivating factor in their decision. He has to prove that 99% of their denial of awarding him a contract was based on race and 1% was only based on if he had sufficient knowledge or expertise in the industry. And here's the kicker. Donald Trump, which controls the DOJ, Department of Justice, he filed the amicus brief, which means friend of the court, to support Comcast in their move to deny him these broadcast channels. Another takeaway from the whole situation is Comcast spends $25 billion annually on channel licensing. Now, out of that $25 billion, less than $3 million are spent on 100% black-owned media. This is why we have to have the new black media. We have to be able to tell our story from our narrative on our own platform. So this is why it's very important for y'all to tune into individuals' podcasts, to tune into individuals' platform and channel, and to get your news and your perspective from people that look like you, that think like you, and that act like you. So with that, I'm going to conclude this. I want everybody to tune in to this decision that's going to happen November 14th. Make sure you tweet about it. Make sure you talk to your family, your friends. And I don't know if it's going to be broadcast live because they usually don't do that with Supreme Court rulings. But I can guarantee you every major network is going to be talking about this. This is big news, and the effects of it, if it comes down that his lawsuit is denied, it's going to have effect on Black America. So that's why, once again, family, it's very important that we support black media. So continue to support Necessary Blackness Podcast. And if you want to send us a donation to make sure that we come on the air every week, make sure you send that Cash App, Raheem Shabazz, or make sure you send it to us by PayPal and using the email raheem.shabazz@gmail.com. That's it for us this week. I will return Sunday. So make sure y'all stay tuned. This is Necessary Blackness Podcast. I'm out. Peace and love, black family.